It is the middle of June, and I have already completed over 150 real money fantasy football drafts. I think I've learned a few things, and also I'm able to pull up my exposures and see running backs that I guess I've been avoiding. The last guy in this video will come to a surprise to most people. I honestly thought I was drafting him, and I guess I'm not. But let's go over these 4 running backs that I think we should be avoiding in 2022 fantasy football drafts. And if people are wondering, Mason, how the hell are you getting in real money fantasy football leagues in June? Over there on Underdog Fantasy. On Underdog Fantasy, you don't submit your starting lineup. You don't do waivers. It's automatically done for you at the end of every single week. So we are able to go and draft 150, 300, possibly 400 best ball teams this offseason. I'm sure you've seen us doing it on the live stream every single day. Literally, there's nothing more fun if you enjoy fantasy football. And if you go to the link in the description and you use promo code FLOCK when you make your first deposit with Underdog Fantasy, they will match your deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. You'll get my 2022 rankings. You'll get my dynasty rankings. You'll get my dynasty rookie rankings. You'll get my dynasty rookie draft guide. You'll support this channel. You'll get into drafts with us. Go take advantage of that. You can find the link in the description. But let's stop talking about that. Let's go over to our first running back. Let's go to Raheem Mostert. And no, Raheem Mostert's not going high in drafts right now. People understand that this is a player that should go near the end. I'm arguing that he should go even lower than he is. I mean, I know we are going to have people saying, oh, well, he's already going at the end of the draft. Who are you taking? I'll take someone like Brian Robinson over him. I'll take someone that we have a 3-down profile of coming out of Alabama that was drafted inside the top 100 picks that, yes, is in a murky backfield right now. But if an injury were to occur in front of him with Antonio Gibson, or if Antonio Gibson goes out there week 1 and fumbles, then all of a sudden Brian Robinson could be stepping into a situation in Washington where there's opportunity. But let's dive in to Raheem Mostert. And what I want to do is I want to pay respect to the man. Every single running back that we are going to talk about here, I am going to give you a bull case and a bear case. I'm going to say, if you were to draft him, if you wanted to, here's why. Here's what is positive about his overall profile. And Raheem Mostert, you don't have to go too far into the past to see, yeah, he can finish higher than where he's being drafted right now. He's being drafted as a running back 5. And back in 2019, this was a running back that was the running back 36 on a per game basis. In 2020, he was the running back 29 on a per game basis. And if we look at that 2020 season, he was used decently as a rusher overall. He averaged 13 carries a game in San Francisco and had almost 85 total yards a game. That's impressive from Raheem Mostert. Now, we'll get to the negatives in just one second, but we can also acknowledge that same thing in 2019. In 2019, he was a hyper-efficient running back. We know, what people sell with Mostert is his yards per carry, is his speed, is his breakaway ability, is the fact that, you can see a 60-yard rushing touchdown just anytime he gets the ball. That's in the range of outcomes. Now, before we get to some negatives, let me also talk about some more positives. He's going over to a team in Miami that right now doesn't have an established running back. The only running back on this roster currently that was there last year is Myles Gaskin. And with the new coaching staff coming over from San Francisco, this is a coaching staff that should be familiar with Raheem Mostert since they saw him last year. But this team probably doesn't trust Myles Gaskin, because if you did, would you go day 1 of free agency, go, okay, well, yeah, we're signing Chase Edmonds. Then wait a little bit. Oh, yeah, we're signing Raheem Mostert. Then wait a little bit longer. Oh, yeah, we're signing Sony Michel. No, they probably don't trust Gaskins. He's probably off the roster, or maybe he stays, but he's not going to have a large role. And on top of this, it's not like Edmonds has ever been a 3-down bell cow for a long duration. It's not like Sony Michel has done that either. So the depth chart looks relatively easy to climb for Raheem Mostert. He's the only player on that team that has the former rapport with the head coach. And we've seen him finish as a running back 3 in fantasy, and you're getting him as a running back 5. Now, those are all bullish signals for Raheem Mostert. I think we can all get behind. That's the reason that you are drafting him. But let me go through the negatives. Let me go through every red flag that you have here. And of course, the first red flag that we are going to have to bring up is this is a running back that cannot stay healthy. If we go through and look at his injuries since 2017, it is a long list. You have an MCL sprain. You have an ankle sprain. You have another ankle sprain. You have another knee sprain. You have a shoulder injury in 2017. You have another MCL sprain. You have an arm fracture in 2018. You have a concussion in 2019. You have a calf strain in 2020. And you have a meniscus trim 2021. Obviously, destroyed his knee before the season started. That's one concern that you have. This is a 30-year-old running back. 30-year-old running back that's coming off a year where he didn't play with the season-ending injury. This isn't a J.K. Dobbins type situation where we look at J.K. Dobbins and go, okay, yeah, rehab's going to be fine. Yeah, this man should be back in 9 months. We really have no concern. No, he's 30 years old and he's always dealt with these injuries. And moving on from this, what is the issue in Miami? A lot of people want to be Tua Tagovailoa truthers. A lot of people want to say, oh no, Tua's a good quarterback, but what has been holding him back? According to the Tua truthers, the offensive line play for the Miami Dolphins. PFF had Miami as a bottom 5 offensive line unit last season. There's not much that should change that going forward. So we can assume that when you're going from San Francisco, historically speaking, at least over the past 5 seasons, one of the best offensive lines in the entire NFL career. And how did Raheem Mostert win when he was a running back 3 in fantasy? He won based off of his yards per carry. He won based off of his rushing efficiency. That's not going to be able to carry over when you're going into your age 30 season. The speed's going to come down just a little bit. And also you get a massive downgrade with your offensive line. Now we can go to our next point. How do you overcome a bad offensive line? How does that happen? Oh, well, you handle a 3-down workload. You get used as a receiving running back out of the backfield. You overcome it with volume. Well, Raheem Mostert, I know a lot of people have heard me say this, but this should be the nail in the coffin. Like, we're burying Raheem Mostert right now. I got the shovel. I'm digging it out. He's in the coffin, and we're getting this one nail. We're about to hammer it in, okay? The man's going into his age 30 season. He has had a whopping one game in his NFL career with 20 or more carries. What is that? That tells us that this player will never see volume. He will never, it would have happened by now. He's been on multiple NFL teams. Back whenever he was a running back 3 in fantasy and everybody loved him, he was going up against Jeff Wilson and Jerick McKinnon. He had no competition whatsoever. If you thought he could be a 3-down running back, he probably would have been that in his running back prime, 25, 26, 27 years old, when he had no competition at all for touches in his backfield. So we have a lack of volume. We have an injury history. We have a bad offensive line. And going to our next point, Raheem Mostert's a running back that will not catch passes out of the backfield, even if somehow, some way, he climbs to the top of this depth chart and he is the running back 1 in Miami, which I highly doubt. But if that were to occur, then you still have Chase Edmonds on 3rd down. You still have Myles Gaskin on 3rd down. It is not going to be Raheem Mostert. I mean, his best season we've ever seen from him. He goes out there and he has 19 targets through 8 weeks. That was the best year we have ever seen from Raheem Mostert. He is not a running back that is ever used on 3rd down. So now to summarize, the highest ceiling that you are going to have for Raheem Mostert is he is a 1st and 2nd down running back running behind one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. He's one of the most injury-prone running backs in the NFL. And the man's going into his age 30 season at the running back position. Now, if you were 100% sure that was the profile you were getting this upcoming season, that you were getting the 1st and 2nd down running back for the Miami Dolphins and you were drafting him as a running back 5, that's a fine pick. That's a fine pick. But, this is the big but, that's his best case scenario. Right now, I wouldn't be too surprised if Mostert doesn't make the team. Because, as we've already mentioned, this team went out there and brought in running back after running back after running back after running back. I think it's going to be down between Sony Michel and Raheem Mostert on who they want to bring on. Now, probably ends up being Mostert, but we know Chase Edmonds is starting as the lead RB here. We know Chase Edmonds is starting probably with 60% of the touches in this backfield. They pay the man $5.5 million for this upcoming season. He's the one with the big contract. He's the one that they plan on starting. So the downside for Mostert is even lower than what we were talking about with this ceiling. Now let's move over to our next running back. This is going to be another bum before we get to the big names. Let's go over to Gus Edwards. a very similar type situation here. I mean, if you're looking at Gus Edwards, let's go through the positives. With Edwards, this is a running back that you can make an argument that he is going to have a role in this offense. If we look at 2019 and 2020 over there on RotoViz, and we set it to game neutral environments, that means the scores within 7 points. We're using 2019 and 2020 because that's when Gus Edwards was playing. That's when Lamar Jackson was playing. The Baltimore Ravens ran the ball 57% of the time. 57%. The most run-heavy team beyond the Baltimore Ravens, the Tennessee Titans at 50%. Baltimore wants to run the ball over and over and over and over and then run the ball some more. That's all they do. Now, on top of this, they're never going to use a bell cow running back. We saw J.K. Dobbins, his rookie season, average a whopping 25.74% of this team's carries on a per game basis. They're going to use committee. We saw this past year as well. You had Latavius Murray averaging 8.5 carries a game. You had Devontae Freeman averaging 8.3 carries per game. You had Le'Veon Bell averaging 6.2 carries per game. This will be a committee backfield where right now Gus Edwards looks like he's going to be the running back too. You have Lamar Jackson, so we know the rushing efficiency overall is going to be sky high for the Baltimore Ravens. But we need to go to the upside case for Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards back in 2020 was a top 10 running back in yards per carry because the offensive environment is beautiful in Baltimore. You're running alongside Lamar Jackson. There's not much more you could ask for. And with that role where he was getting used regularly and he was very efficient, he was still the running back 51 on a per game basis. So that tells us, okay, well, yeah, no, even though he technically gets touches every single week, no, it doesn't matter if it's best ball on Underdog. It doesn't matter if it's your traditional fantasy football league. You cannot start. You can never use Gus Edwards in fantasy unless there was an injury to J.K. Dobbins. And that's a possibility. Hell, of course, that's a possibility. I mean, with J.K. Dobbins, this is a running back that went down before last season. So let's just go best case scenario, J.K. Dobbins goes down for Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards is healthy going into the year. J.K. Dobbins, maybe he tweaks something in training camp coming back from the torn ACL, and you have Gus Edwards as the starting running back for the first 4 weeks. Can you start him in fantasy? My argument's no, because this is a team that went out there. They tried to sign Melvin Gordon this offseason. When that didn't work out, they bring in Mike Davis. Gus Edwards has never been involved as a pass-catching running back in the slightest in Baltimore. In 2020, his best season, he averaged 0.8 targets per game. We know Mike Davis is a capable pass-catching running back. We know Mike Davis would slide in to be a committee in this backfield. So even if J.K. Dobbins were to go down, then all of a sudden, Gus Edwards goes from maybe averaging 9 carries a game and 0.8 targets a game to 10 carries a game and 1 target a game. Like, no, Mike Davis will still split the backfield. It will still be a committee. And if we go over to Underdog and look at where Gus Edwards is currently being drafted, he's being drafted ahead of Keel Herbert. He's being drafted neck and neck with Tyrion Davis-Price. And let's pull up Keel Herbert. Yeah, you can't start Herbert for a second that David Montgomery's healthy. But what would happen if Montgomery were to go down? We've seen Keel Herbert go out there and command every single touch in this backfield. We've seen that upside. With Tyrion Davis-Price, this is a running back that checks a ton of boxes. What happens if Elijah Mitchell goes down? Then all of a sudden, Tyrion Davis-Price maybe is the 3-down bell cow on another run-heavy offense in San Francisco. However, he doesn't have Mike Davis also splitting the backfield with him. So Gus Edwards is a running back in this range. I mean, he's going 5 picks behind Kenneth Gainwell, James Robinson. I would easily prefer those RBs as well. There's just no reason to draft these guys because even best case scenario is not good for him. Now let's go to a running back that, trust me, I was all in last year. If y'all been watching the channel for a while, I mean, our most viewed video ever was a $1,000 fantasy football draft that I did, that the only running back I drafted through the first 8 rounds was DeAndre Swift. Like, I loved me some DeAndre Swift last season. And there were a lot of reasons for this. And the largest one of those reasons was the role as a receiver out of the backfield. You looked at DeAndre Swift at Georgia. You looked at what he did his rookie season. And you looked at the target competition in Detroit. This is before everybody knew Amon-Ra St. Brown was a great wide receiver. And you were saying, okay, well, The wide receiver one here is potentially Khalif Raymond. We should probably bet that DeAndre Swift is going to be a focal point in this offense. They're going to run the passing offense through TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift. So when Swift was going in the late third round last season and everybody was spazzing going, oh my God, you can't draft DeAndre Swift. They have Jamal Williams. I was saying, shut up. Jamal Williams will steal some carries, but it won't matter because Swift will get every target out of the backfield and usage in the red zone. Well, now people have realized, hell, DeAndre Swift's a very talented running back, and you are having to pay the price on him. He's being drafted neck and neck with Mark Andrews. He's being drafted before Aaron Jones, before Leonard Fournette. He's being drafted before so many different running backs, even in a half PPR format, that I would prefer over DeAndre Swift that are playing in much better offenses, because I'm looking at Swift going, yeah, he's the exact player we knew he was a year ago, but the situation is worse because he's not going up against rookie year Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, we can assume Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to expand his role in this offense. And on top of that, you bring in DJ Chark for almost $10 million. You draft Jameson Williams as well. So instead of going up against rookie year Amon-Ra St. Brown, TJ Hawkinson missed 5 games last year. You're going to be going up against second year Amon-Ra St. Brown, TJ Hawkinson, DJ Chark, Jameson Williams. The target rate has to come down for Swift. This was a running back that averaged 17.2% of the Detroit Lions targets on a per game basis. The only other running backs to get to that mark over the past 3 seasons, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette. Like, yes, it was an elite season. It was everything you could have dreamed of for DeAndre Swift. But now the situation is worse than it was, and you're having to draft him over a full round in advance of where he was going last season. Maybe I'm salty because we're not getting DeAndre Swift where we were in drafts last year. Maybe I'm just being a little crybaby, but I'm going to prefer Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones essentially has the same role in Green Bay. However, it's going to be a much better offense with more touchdown upside. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, you have Aaron Jones splitting the backfield with A.J. Dillon. DeAndre Swift had 46% of this team's carries out of the backfield last year. 46% on a per game basis. Like, it's not like DeAndre Swift's going out there and touching every single ball of the backfield either. He's another committee running back that's an elite pass catcher. So if I'm drafting an elite pass catching committee running back, I'm going to prefer Aaron Jones in the much better offense. Okay, so now let's go to our last RB. This is someone that I am going to start to draft because his ADP has fallen so much. Now, if you look at my 150 drafts that I've done, I have barely any Cam Akers. Barely any Cam Akers at all. Now, I don't even want to say it's anything against Akers himself, because if we are looking at Cam Akers, this is a running back I loved coming out of Florida State. He has the size to be a 3-down bell cow. He was an elite athlete at the NFL Combine. He was a good pass-catching running back at Florida State as well. Off the top of my head, he had like 12.5% of his team's target share in college. That's a great pass-catching running back. And he gets the draft capital. Every prospect box is checked by Cam Akers. Everything that you could ever dream of. I mean, he was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school. Now, my issue with Akers has not been the player. It's been where he's going in drafts and roster construction on Underdog Fantasy. So Cam Akers, through the majority of these drafts, was going at the 3-4 turn. You were having to take Cam Akers over Jalen Waddle. You're having to take him over DJ Moore, over Darren Waller, over Ezekiel Elliott, over Deontay Johnson. Now he's fallen a bit. But the reason we were not drafting Cam Akers is I was looking at this overall draft board, and you have to understand this is why we get in so many drafts, because I want to say I'm confident that I'm a better drafter than almost anybody at this point because we put in the repetition and we can work through this draft board, because I would much prefer taking a wide receiver here and grabbing someone like Jalen Waddle, and then in the 5th round, grabbing Josh Jacobs, grabbing Travis Etienne, grabbing J.K. Dobbins when they make it back around, versus taking Cam Akers 2 rounds ahead of Josh Jacobs and then being stuck with Darnell Mooney instead of Jalen Waddle. So I don't have too much to say negative about Akers. We can talk about his torn Achilles. I mean, since he tore his Achilles, he came back at the end of this past season and he had 72 carries for 175 yards through the playoff stretch in the last week of the regular season. That is good for 2.43 yards per carry. He was atrocious at the end of last year. I am not going to hold that against him. I am not holding it against him because he tore his Achilles before the season started. In July, we were assuming, okay, yeah, crap. Looks like you're not going to have Cam Akers making it back this year. Looks like he may miss the beginning of next season as well, just because a torn Achilles is such a bad injury for the running back position. He came back early. I don't think we should hold his lack of efficiency against him. Like I said, the reason I have been avoiding Cam Akers in drafts is because I'm preferring grabbing a wide receiver in that range or grabbing an elite tight end in that range and then following it up with Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne, J.K. Dobbins, one of those running backs 2 rounds later. Now, I think a lot of other people have figured this out as well. So you're seeing Cam Akers and his ADP fall. Cam Akers used to be going at around pick 35, 36. Now he's down there hovering in the early 40s. So if Akers continues to fall, we're probably going to start drafting some Cam Akers. But up until this point, I haven't taken him whatsoever. And that's all I got for y'all. I really hope y'all enjoyed the video. And of course, if you want to go get in some real money fantasy football drafts, you can find the link down below. Go sign up, use promo code FLOCK for everything that we already discussed. Most importantly, have some fun, get into some fantasy football drafts, especially with us in the live stream. That's all I got for y'all. Really hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I really hope you have a great day.